Namaste, Hare Krishna. Second chapter, Sankhya Yoga. Sloka 69. niśā sarva-bhūtānāṁ tasyāṁ jāgarti saṁyamī yasyāṁ jāgrati bhūtāni niśā paśyato muneḥ. In the 69th sloka, Krishna is talking about the self-realized person who has controlled his senses, how he perceives the sense objects. That is what being focused on this particular sloka. In the 69th sloka, and 70 and 71 can be seen as complete a set of sequence. How in 69th sloka a person, how he perceives the sense object, and in 70 another person how he perceives, and 71 how the other person perceives. So as we go through each slokas, we'll see this differences. But in the 69th, today's sloka, it talks about an metaphor. That is, when everyone sleeps, the self-realized person is awakened. When everyone is awake, the self-realized person is sleeping. That's all the literal meaning of this particular sloka. But the deeper meaning, what Krishna is trying to say, is not about a night shift and day shift where people are sleeping in the night and working in the daytime working and nighttime sleeping, things like that. Rather, it talks about a very important point, categorizing two different people. When everyone is sleeping, niśā sarva-bhūtānāṁ, when everyone, sarva-bhūtānāṁ means all living entities are sleeping, tasyāṁ jāgarti saṁyamī. The person who has controlled the senses is wide awakened. Yasyāṁ jāgrati bhūtāni, when everyone is, all the living entities are awake, niśā paśyato muneḥ. The self-realized person, a muni, is sleeping. So, when everyone is sleeping, those who have controlled the senses are awakened. When all the living entities, everyone is wide awake, the person who has controlled the senses is in deep sleep. Beautiful sloka, but it requires some understanding. Otherwise, we must be thinking about sleeping and working and things like that. Here, niśā means night. Night means darkness. Darkness means absence of knowledge. Absence of knowledge, true knowledge, means not having atma darshan, or a person who is not self-realized. So which means the world is sleeping, in a sleeping state, considered to be in a sleeping state, when it's not, the people are, does not have atma jnana, a knowledge of atma, or not seen the atma. Whereas the person is awake, meaning he's controlled the senses, saṁyamī, is controlled the senses, who's fully awake and self-realized. The people in the world are wide awake when it comes to material things. Anything to talk about material items, they get into conversation, they are active, passionate, They try to be very awake and alert. But for a self-realized person, that's the time he becomes sleepy, meaning he doesn't show much interest in those things. That becomes darkness for him. The whole area of what the material people sees as bright is being seen as dark by the self-realized person. It also applies the other way around. What has been seen as bright by the self-realized person is seen as a dark area by the materialistic people. So, the way that we can see this in much more detail is mentally having a difference between these two things, like a material and a spiritual. The materialistic person focuses on the outer world, whereas the spiritual persons focus on the inner world, Atma. The material person wants to control the outer world. A spiritual self-realized person wants to control the inner world. The materialistic person wants to please others, whereas a spiritual person wants to please the self, Atma. The materialistic person wants to gain name, fame and prestige in the society, and the spiritual person wants to be free from name, fame and prestiges. The materialistic person wants to accumulate more of external objects, external things, whereas the spiritual person wants to minimize all the external things. The materialistic person finds happiness from the external world, whereas the spiritual person finds happiness from the internal world, inner world. The materialistic person are all the time busy running behind the material things, whereas the spiritual person all the time sitting in one place trying to focus on self. The materialistic persons are behind the perishable items, whereas the spiritual person walks towards the imperishable Atma. So we can see the vast difference between the materialistic people and the spiritualistic people. People in general are so very busy, they have no time to any spiritual activities or cultivating true spiritual knowledge. They feel that those who are practicing spirituality are simply wasting time, and they are mad people. They don't know how to enjoy life. They don't know how to progress nicely. They are lazy people. They are handicapped, depending on some superpower. These are some things that the materialistic people have a view about the spiritual people. Whereas, in the other hand, those who are practicing spirituality thinks those who are materialistic people are engrossed, entangled into the materialistic life. They are wasting their time. They are mad people. They are running behind the materialistic things which is perishable. And they're behind the flickering happiness, always thinking that is great. So the man in materialistic activities, being asleep to self-realization, dreams of varieties of sense pleasures, feeling sometimes happy, sometimes distressed. In this way, he is in a sleeping condition, as per the spiritualist. This difference between the spiritualist and the materialist will always continue to exist. There's going to be two categories of people all the time. Therefore, the materialistic people sees is, and the self-realized person see materialistic people differently. The truth is, we have to wake up and see the reality around us. We have technologically advanced so much, which is quite impressive. Yet we still see the problems of the world and the diseases are increasing in multitude. We see people from all age groups, starting from children to old, having so many problems. The youths, working people, even the wealthy people, they have everything, or the people who doesn't have anything but wanting to have materialistic thing. They are going through so many problems in their life. Depression, sometimes they go to the extreme case of even killing themselves, or getting addicted to intoxication to either forget their problems or to get some temporary pleasure. Therefore, Krishna gives in this sloka a metaphor saying the materialistic people, whatever they think are like night, and the same thing is bright daytime for the spiritualist, because they don't get entangled into the materialistic thing which is darkness. They focus on the Atma. And then on the other hand, the materialistic people, when they sleep, meaning they are sleeping, is free of knowledge, free of Atma Darshan, self-realization, is awakening for the self-realized. And the self-realized are sleeping, meaning they are sleeping on the materialistic activities done by those people towards the materialistic pleasure, satisfying the senses. Because the self-realized person is has a complete control of his senses. That's the meaning of this sloka. Ya niśā sarva-bhūtānāṁ tasyāṁ jāgarti saṁyamī yasyāṁ jāgrati bhūtāni sā niśā paśyato muneḥ. Namaste. Hare Krishna.